Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this morning I'm joined by Daniel O'Brien, who's an insurance advisor from Aston in the Midlands. And we met on LinkedIn, and we're going to have a little chat about business and lockdown and life in general. How are you doing this morning, Daniel? Are you okay?
I'm great. I've had my morning cup of coffee, which is an essential part of my day. If the podcast would have been 2 hours earlier, I wouldn't have been anywhere near as responsive. So, no, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No problem.
It's great, and it's great that LinkedIn allows interactions like this because, again, without that platform, there wouldn't have been of this. So, I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, brilliant. And I have a lot of people on my podcast. I used to have a lot of my network on, and I still do. But I've also been networking internationally through Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and my podcast more
Yeah.
recently. And I've had lots of international guests on, so it's great to have a fellow Brit on again, because I've had quite a lot of internationals on recently. But my first question always is, how has the lockdown been for you and your business or your job? And what have you done, different during that time, really?
No, because we're in an industry which is probably considered by many a necessary evil. We're doing okay. We've been locked down since middle of March. We've been working from home, and that's still the form. But we're sustainable. We're doing fine. We're in a position where the clients that I look after personally are not much in the retail or the hospitality industry, so they're still there and they're still renewing. I think the only change really is where I'm sort of face-to-face person, so I go and see people. It's been a little more challenging to conduct those kind of renewal discussions and audits or going to see new clients. But I think it's about, again, you've got to be positive and to react into the environment that you're in, and so you just find new avenues to connect with people, hence things like this or going on LinkedIn. So I suppose it's just refined or changed the way that I've always done business, but in terms of the approach to business, the way that the insurance market works, it's almost business as usual. I give credit to my employers, actually, that we've got seemingly a very good infrastructure for things like working from home, because we have heard horror stories whereby some insurers, for example, have been offline for 2 weeks, and you think, well, what happens if something burns down? And so I think it's been quite seamless for myself. I kind of feel lucky in the industry that I'm in and the way that we set up to deal with it.
Yeah, good. And it's a bit like me. I've been working from home for 8 years, so very little really changed when the lockdown came for me, except for I used to go networking in the real world twice a week, usually 2 events a week. And now I do 8 online events a week because I can now, because there's less time involved in going to an online event than a real world event, especially as with an online event, for example, sometimes you only get a few minutes to say what you do and the rest of the time you're listening. So I can listen and do other things at the same time, which means it's not actually taking up 2 hours of dedicated time like a real world event would do. So you can juggle lots more of them in the day. And also I used to do sort of telesales, field sales, and then I've been doing, digital marketing and all that sort of stuff and all the different platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. So all my eggs aren't in one basket, if you like. So whereas a lot of people pre-lockdown, they were only doing things one way, and then when that thing stopped, they had to do it a different way. Well, if you diversify and do things multiple ways anyway, then if one of them stops, you've always got the other ways to keep going, so.
Yeah, I think we're lucky in that we're not providers of a tangible good. We're more of a providers of a result, and because of that, I found that certainly for myself, we have become more productive, because if I previously had a client meeting up in Newcastle, for example, that's a day's travelling, so I wouldn't be able to get the laptop out. I'd go and see the client for an hour, come back, and that would take me 10 hours, 11 hours to do. But because I conduct the calls like this at the moment, I suddenly get another 7 hours back, whereby I can, catch up on administration, make some calls, speak to insurers. So, I think that, in fact, I passionately think that things are going to be different forever now, because
Definitely.
we're going to speak to clients and go, right, do you want us to come and see you? And they're thinking, well, why? Because it worked so well last time, and we're not going to fight it because obviously the offer's always there, but we save on expenses in getting up and down the country, and we save on time, and we're more productive. So I think the world will change, and for the better.
I think the economy, once we get over the problem, I think you find the economy is gonna 2x or 3x or 10x. I think the economy is gonna really get a boost of the efficiency. Something I've been teaching for a long time is technical efficiency. So putting technology into your business to replace people and to replace old antiquated processes.
Yeah.
And that's what businesses are finding now, is that actually they've switched to technology and they're realizing they've got so much more time in the day.
Agreed. And, I think it's a case of, certainly for myself, and again for you, because obviously you're used to being out and about and stuff. In my 12 years of insurance, I've never finished at 5 o'clock so much in my life, because I've got that much more time to do stuff that I can allow myself to finish when I should be finishing, as opposed to getting back from an all-day visit and go, right, I better do some emails now, and then suddenly you close your laptop at 8. So I think it's great in that sense.
Yeah, well, there's 3 hours of the day that most people get back, and that's the hour and a half commute to and from work.
Agreed.
When it's only a 20 or 30 minute journey most of the time, but it's hour and a half in the morning and in the afternoon because of the time. So, that's 3 hours of productivity. So myself, something I would encourage you as a young entrepreneur is work that 3 hours, because you would have lost it anyway. So give some work into those 3 hours, and actually you'll find you're 3 hours more productive per day, which is like 15 hours a week, which is like 60 hours a month. Think how much more money you can make if you work 60 hours a month that was just previously written off.
That's good advice. Very good advice.
So when I was in the corporate world, I used to work that time anyway, because what I realized is it's only a half hour to get home, but it take an hour and a half. So I'll stay on for that hour and a half and then leave to get home. And I've got an hour and a half extra time that I would have just been sat in the car listening to the radio otherwise.
Yeah, I used to, when I worked, because I used to work in Birmingham city centre, I'm a bit further out now. But the only way to really get in and out of the city centre is by train, and I used to do it all the time. The trains after work were packed for an hour and a half. So I thought, what's the point in being completely closed up, where I can just carry on, do a bit of extra, and then get a train at 6, half 6, and it's a much more comfortable journey.
Yeah, well, I actually got promoted 9 times in 6 years in a tech startup business because of that strategy. Putting in the extra time, because if you're willing to put in the extra time in when other people aren't, then you're going to get promoted.
Yeah, agreed.
It's how it works, you know what I mean? It's like what I say to people who are new to trying to find a job. I say, well, volunteer at a company you want to work at. Tell them that you'll go and start for nothing and you'll work like a dog because you're passionate about their business. They'll let you in, and once they see how passionate you are and how hard you work, they'll give you a job.
Yeah, it's things like that, and that kind of personality trait. I think it's difficult to teach. You can learn knowledge and you can get experience, but as an employer, you want somebody that's driven and passionate and goes that extra mile, and everything else can be acquired along the way, I think.
Yeah.
I'd rather that personality trait with, little experience than somebody who is sort of like, well, I've got the experience, but I'm only going to give you my experience through my contracted hours. You think, oh, well, it's not as appealing, is it?
No, definitely not. That's why a lot of companies they employ for attitude and they'll train for skills.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Aston Lark, what you do there and what products you offer, etc.
Yeah, so the corporate spiel of Aston Lark is that we're the quickest growing insurance broker in the UK and the current insurance broker of the year, with, I believe it's around 30 offices now in the UK and 1 in Ireland. We pitch ourselves as a general commercial insurance broker. So we look after, it could be a property owner, it could be solicitors, manufacturers, tech companies, right across the board. But we do the whole suite of packages. So it's not just the insurance for the businesses. We've got the capability to do things like your pensions, your key man, and all that kind of stuff. So we're a general commercial insurance broker, but with areas of specialism. So the office I work in Stourbridge, we are very big into the metal recycling industry and the motor vehicle dismantlers industry. So we have affiliations with the British Metal Recyclers Association and the Vehicle Recycling Association. Now, that's our niche, which does well for us because the word recycling in the insurance industry is generally a swear word because of the risks associated to it and the history of the industry being, quite, I suppose, underhanded and a little bit sort of dirty, which is now being cleaned up. And, we see fantastic risks all the time. So my day-to-day role is to sit like this, or whether it's on in person or now on a Zoom call, and then I ask people what they do, get a feel for the business, and then give them advice as to what their risks are and how they can protect themselves around it.
Okay, so it's sort of commercial insurance arm, really. Commercial buildings, trucks, vehicles. Premises. Cover for when the workers are out on site, so public liability, professional indemnity, all that sort of stuff, all wrapped up into one policy, is it? Or
no, it's not always one policy, but we wrap it up into a program. So I've got clients that have 8, 9 policies plus, covering the risks that you just said. So they'll have their fleet and they'll have their liabilities and their property, but then you talk about the non-tangible stuff like directors cover, cyber covers massive, and you probably see on LinkedIn, I just stick something on that pretty much every day about it, and professional indemnity. Travel at the moment is quite big. Can we go or can't we? So it's just creating a suite and going, these are the risks, these are the insurers, these are the costings. How do you want to look after yourself, and creating a program with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So obviously that's quite a unique niche there, the recycling, but it's one that it's quite a lot of industry growing in that sector, isn't it? Recycling businesses, and there's a lot of big businesses in that sector.
There are. We've got clients who are in the 10 million plus turnover arena in those sectors. The vehicle dismantling industry, I'm of the personal opinion that there's going to be a boom in that section. Insurers are becoming more willing to use second-hand parts or green parts because it's cleaner and it's cheaper. And I think from a personal perspective, because of the uncertainty of employment at the moment, people are more hesitant to take on long-term leases on vehicles. So that way they'll either keep their vehicle and buy second-hand parts via a scrapyard and fit it themselves, or buy second-hand and get the parts from a dismantler. So I think the dismantling and the recycling industry is going to boom out of almost an uncertain economic climate.
Yeah, definitely. I think the new car market is definitely going to take a dip. So that means they're both intertwined, if you like, aren't they? Interconnected. If the new car market takes a dip, then the recycled parts market takes a climb as people hold on to their cars a bit longer.
Yeah, I think it's the certainly at the moment in the short term, it's the people are travelling less. Like I said, because we're working in different ways. There is uncertainty around employment for a lot of people, so they're going, do I really want to commit to a 3-year lease on a vehicle whereby I may not even use it, and if something did happen, I may not be able to fund it. So I think people are making the decision not to hold back and keep vehicles for longer, which our clients think is great because they're doing better out of it.
Yeah, I think it's great anyway. I think the over commercialization and dipping into resources from the planet is not a sustainable thing anyway. And I think there's too much scrapping of secondhand cars just because nobody wants them. The value of secondhand cars, especially once they're like 10 years or older, has just fallen. And if we'd have done that years ago, there wouldn't be anything like antique cars like there are now, where people have looked after them. And I suppose there's certain cars that people are never going to scrap, certain brands and stuff. But, it's a bit like most things. It's like mobile phones. People get rid of them when they're still working fine, just because they want to buy another one. It's the same with cars. People get rid of their cars because they scrap them because nobody wants to buy a second hand because it's got a few parts that are missing or need replacing. So they just scrap the whole car. And it's like, what you got to do is put 3 new parts on it. It's a new, put a new clutch in or a new... something, a new engine, and then you got a new car.
The shiny and the new, don't they? And like I agree, certainly with the phone thing, because I got a new phone last year, and they said okay, put your old phone in this box, and we'll give you some credit towards the cost of a new phone. And I obviously gave them back, but I always wonder what happens to them. I'm assuming that the parts are recycled, but I don't actually know. And Yeah, I
I think
suppose
that,
it's the
well, I
point.
think a lot of the phones over here that are collected are given to places like Africa and that, where they don't
Mm,
mind that the phone is 3 years old or 5 years old or whatever, because 5 years old is still newer than the 10-year-old one that they got, like, you know?
of course. I think it's difficult, isn't it, with electronics, because you buy a new phone and 3 months later it's already out of date, and so it's people wanting to have the brand new and the up to date, and but I think same as you, I just don't think it's sustainable. I kind of hope that like things like phones get to a point where it's just constantly kept up to date via software upgrades, and do it that way, because I don't think it is sustainable to keep
Yeah,
changing phones every
I
couple
think
of
that
years.
would make perfect sense. You know, the hardware stays the same and is the perfect hardware, you know, and then just the updates happen within the system. So it's not eating into resources, but it's still being modernized. Like, you know, I think
Yeah.
that's the way forward. I actually never thought about that as a solution to the phone industry, but that's a great idea. That is, yeah, you know,
Yeah,
but
well,
it's
at
like,
least the moment I'm worth it then.
yeah, it's like I stopped upgrading my phones purposely because I didn't think the hardware was that much better. And actually, like, there was a phase when the phone was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I
Yeah,
actually quite liked it when it was smaller. So I was
yeah,
like, well, I'm not going to upgrade my phone for a big one when I just want it to be little in my pocket, you know.
yeah.
Especially as I carry two phones because I'm always social media marketing. I use one for my calling and one for my working.
Yeah, of course.
The
Yeah,
battery's better, like, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't upgrade my phones as much now, but you always got to update the software. But that's where they should tie the pricing into the software rather than the hardware,
Yeah,
and keep the
yeah,
planet.
even if you did it that way, it's new software's coming out, give us 50 quid, and you're, yeah, fine, because I want them to, all the up to date apps and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that should be the future. I suppose the only sort of the only thing I could think that they could potentially upgrade, which can't come via software, is the camera phone, um, possibly. But then again, I think looking at the picture on my phone, it's like if I've got a camera anyway, so I can't see how much more they can actually.
No, that's it. Yeah, they add more and more and more to the camera, but
Mm.
ultimately most people don't care. Actually,
Yeah,
it's like I got a better quality camera over the years, and I take a lot of pictures. But when you
mm,
send the pictures, the bigger the quality, the bigger the file, the more it takes up your memory and your space and everything. So I usually pick like medium or something anyway. So like
yeah, yeah.
so if you want a really good camera phone that's improved every year, then you should go out and get a new phone. But for the vast majority of people, once you've hit a certain level, they don't want
You're
anything
not
better.
bothering.
You know what I mean? It's a bit
Yeah,
like I'm not that bothered by HD and 3D and 4D and all that. As long as I can watch the telly in this clear picture, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I'm more interested in the programming than the TV just getting minuscule bits
And,
clearer and more better every time. Like, you know?
and so my brother's like, he tells me like you need a 4K TV, and like you'll sit around his house and be like, oh, look at the quality of it, and I'm like, yeah, but what you're watching is the same. It doesn't matter if like the grass that you can see is just slightly more defined. It doesn't really change my experience all that much. Certainly for a couple of thousand to actually get
Yeah,
that
well, that's
little
it.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's the same as with sound. It's like I haven't actually got a microphone for my podcast. I just use the computer, you know, the built-in
yeah,
microphone. But I'm in a quiet environment, which is good, which helps
yeah.
as well. But like, you know, some people wouldn't put out a podcast episode or recording because of the sound quality or whatever. Like, well, I've listened to the sound quality. It's fine. If you needed to be a certain sound quality over and above that, well, don't listen to my podcast. You know what I mean? Listen to someone
Yeah.
else's who's got a microphone or something. But for most people, it'll do. Like, you know what I mean? People can hear the message, and you know, you don't want to detract from the message. It's the content that's important, not necessarily whether you know everything is as crystal or not. And in real world situations, when you speak to people in the real world, not everyone speaks at the same level or of clarity and stuff. So you know, it's part of reality and real life. Not everything needs to be sanitized. Things are
Yeah,
real and authentic. You know.
yeah, agreed. Totally agree.
Yeah, brilliant. So I do quite a lot of business networking. Do you do much business networking in the Midlands?
I'd say more so now. It's one of those where we've got to grow. A bit of background in our company is that we had a huge investment last year of £300 million by Goldman Sachs, and they said, okay, well, we can see potential in your business, but obviously, if someone puts 300 million in, they want to return on their investment. So we are tasked create these new ways of doing that. And you know, one of the ones that I'm looking at the moment, and I do an hour on Twitter every Tuesday, is it's called the Brummie's Business Hour, and that's great because one of my clients look after a certain area of Birmingham, and this networking group typically meets at the Grosvenor Casino. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I'd like to get into that. Can't go there at the moment because of what the outside's like. But I've managed to sort of connect with a bunch of people, and it'll make it easier when the Grosvenor do open again, and we can go back because I've made that contact via Twitter or via LinkedIn or through other means. So, you know, in terms of networking, we've always networked, I suppose, through our client base, where, you know, the best way to get business is by recommendation. If you do a good job for somebody and you go, look, is there anyone that might need some help? They're generally happy to go, yeah, speak to Dave, that's his number and all that kind of stuff. But you can exhaust that route. And, you know, we need to sort of like, much like what I've been doing on LinkedIn since lockdown, looking at alternative ways to just increase your name, I suppose, and just be out there. And I think I'd be interested to know what you think about the LinkedIn platform, but I sort of use it as almost a place to create awareness. I don't like the direct selling of you need insurance, talk to me now. It's just, these are the topics. If you've got any questions, give me a call, send me an email, and just sort of offer that service. And then if down the line they go, well, the broker I've got isn't really that great, or he's retired or moved somewhere else, can you have a look? Then I'll step in, but I'm not there to you know, say, I want your business, when's your renewal date? It's just not the way.
Yeah, well, yeah, my thoughts on that is LinkedIn is very similar to networking, yeah? It's not a sales platform, it's a networking platform. So therefore, you've got to start slowly. So my advice is always, in networking, online or offline, is to get to know people. So ask people about themselves, take interest in them. Once you've found out a bit about themselves and you found maybe some common ground, etc., and ask them about their business. Ask them how things are going, etc. And then if, for example, they tell you something that opens up an opportunity for you, then step in with that opportunity. And if it doesn't, give them some information about what you do. And, you know, after you found out about them, give them some information about what you do and just say, listen, if ever you're in a situation that you need me, or if you ever know anyone else who's in a situation that they might need me, I'm more than happy to, you know, give you a referral fee or whatever if you mention me, or just bear me in mind. So that would be my approach to both online and offline network. And I think the people who connect with you on LinkedIn and then get straight in with their sales pitch, you know, they're misunderstanding networking a little bit, and they're playing the numbers game, and they're probably working hard just to get very little response and effect. So I think, you know, if you treat people like people and just get to know people and get to, you know, just see which ones you connect with, which ones you don't with, the business will be done with the ones you do connect with. So either, like for me, again, when I'm networking, I'm not necessarily looking for customers. If customers will come your way if you're a good networker and good at what you do. Like you said, referrals and whatever, trust. But what I'm looking for is like-minded people that I can basically connect with, who are going to get to know me and I'm going to get to know them. And then over time, they're going to meet people from time to time that they know I should be speaking to. And I'm going to meet people from time to time that they should be speaking to. So I call them connectors or power networkers, like, you know.
I once went on a course whereby they said that you're 9 times more likely to buy off somebody that you like.
Yeah.
And I think like we're both in roles which is very much about relationship, I believe. So like, you know, yesterday one of my clients rang up I've not spoken to throughout lockdown. And we spent an hour on the phone and we just talked about everything but insurance. You know, we talked about, you know, what she'd been doing with the garden, what was going on with the holiday that she can't go on now and stuff. And it's that. And then we went into the insurance and that lasted about 10 minutes, but it's that interpersonal relationship of, you know, 99% of people, 99% of insurance brokers can find you a decent or suitable policy, but it's who you're buying off, and if there is a problem, who do I ring, or who makes me feel like I'm valued. And I think that's the important thing, to sort of make somebody feel valued and wanted.
Yeah, well, you know, I've been in sales for 30 years. I've been on all sorts of training courses, sales courses, and internal, external, all that sort of thing. And everyone will tell you in sales, people buy people,
Yeah. Yeah.
they buy off people they know, like, and trust. But they buy people generally because they're comparing 3-4 quotes all the time of 3-4 companies who are offering them the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or very similar things. And often the deciding factor will be actually which is the person delivering that information or that service to me that I want to deal with the most. Because
Yeah.
I'm going to speak to them regularly, and they're going to be in my life. I'm going to be in their life, which is the one I want in my life most. Which is why if you can connect with people and actually genuinely get on with them, then you're much better off that way, and you're more likely to do business that way. That lasts longer term as well, because you're the sort of person they want to be. We live in too competitive a world now for people to be existing in business if they can't do their service good. So
Agreed.
so having a good product or a good service is not going to clinch you a deal, because everyone
Agreed.
else has got a good product and a good service. So what's the differentiating factor? Well, the differentiating factor is going to be the passion and enthusiasm of the salesperson or the account manager, the content or the knowledge or the friendliness or relationship skills of the person or the people you're dealing with at the business, the customer service that you give. These are some of the differentiating factors, for me, I always try and add value into my product and service as well. So what things extra can you do that other people aren't doing? So try and make a difference between, one service and another. But I'm always the difference, and I'm always happy to be the difference. Ultimately, anyone who buys any of my products or services, they get me included. So that's like priceless. That's priceless because I know how helpful I am.
Yeah. Well, I've got quite a good anecdote about that, a very short one, but I started looking after a new electrical contractor at the start of July, and they ran me up a bit stressed and all this kind of stuff. Now, in July, or the 1st of July, legislation changed for residential property owners. So if you have a new tenant, you have to get a qualified electrician to do a full electrical inspection of the property. And if they don't, then there's various implications or ramifications of, So I actually contacted this electrical contractor and said, don't know if you're aware of the changes to legislation, but if you've got any sort of residential property owners in your network, it might be worth giving them a call, because it could, and they weren't aware of it, and it could increase another avenue for business. And that's nothing to do with insurance or nothing to do with me or what I'm providing for cover. It's about caring, and it's about going that extra mile.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I come from, again, it's a well-known phrase in the networking community, but give us get. Give us get or give us gain. And actually, if you help people and you give to other people, then obviously when they're in a spot of a moment where they're either put on the spot by somebody else and asked, do you know somebody who can do this? And at that point, you want to be the one that they think of. And obviously, if they're in a position themselves, oh, sugar, something's gone wrong, I need to get hold of somebody who can do this, who's the one I think of? And the one they think of is the one who's probably more likely to have done something for them in some way, or helped them, or just marketed to them, or something. So the way I look at it is one of the best strategies to being thought of at that moment in time, and therefore being contacted, is to help people. And not only is it good for marketing purposes to have helped people, it's also good for society because somebody else has been helped. It's also good for your own feeling, the fact that you've helped somebody. It's actually good for your own mental attitude and your own sort of your own positiveness, if you like, your own self-belief, self-confidence. The more you help people and give to others, the better you'll feel about yourself, and therefore the better you'll be able to close in a sales sort of situation.
No, I think that's great advice. To be honest, it's it's about you. It's about what you bring, and then it's okay. Well, what do you actually do? And I like that order. It's like to get to know them personally, and then because my boss said the quickest way to clear a bar is go into a bar and go, I do insurance. Anybody needs insurance, and you just watch in the room again. It's not a fun conversation. But it's one of those it's like, for example, my dad's business. I started looking after my dad's business this year, despite being in insurance for 12 years. And it was because he had a great relationship with the person that he was with. So I felt little need to go after it, because I used to work with the person that he was with, and I know he was a great person, and they got on really well. So it was of no benefit to my dad at that time
No.
to try and get him, because I knew that worked. So, you know, I think like it's a timing thing, and not, it's okay that not everyone's going to be your client. Even if you know them, it's okay that they place their business elsewhere, because if something happened whereby, like I said, somebody leaves, the business goes in or whatever, you're always going to be their port of call, and I'm completely comfortable with that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Are there any niches you're looking to expand into after that investment then? Because you obviously mentioned the two niches you're sort of working with more at the moment. Are there any other niches you're looking at?
Well, we've got quite a lot across the division. So, you know, we go to funeral directors, we've got a motor trade product, we've got hauliers. So we've got a lot there. I think what the important thing is to the world's changing in the risks that people are facing. People are working more from home. Cyber attacks have gone up by 400% or so since lockdown. So it's more working with the client base you've got and adapting their insurance program. So it's not like a total diversification or okay, this is our new sector. It's just, I suppose, organic growth. It would be the technical term for it, because there are risks there which were there before, but nowhere near as concerning. And having those conversations and trying to make them aware that, you know, you're insuring your physical stuff. You know, my fridge over there is insured and this is insured and stuff. But quite frankly, I'm not going to be bothered if my fridge got stolen. I get a second-hand fridge. But if I couldn't get into my laptop to do work and do this, I'm in a lot of problem. I'm in a lot of trouble. So what am I going to? What should I insure? The fridge, which I'm not really that bothered about because I can get a second-hand fridge, or this? And you know, it's having those conversations at the moment.
Yeah, it's like my mate Phil, he does insurance for people's lives and directors insurance and that sort of thing. And like people insure their house and their car, but they don't insure their life.
Yeah. I find a big one, and we did a bit of a ring round for this. It is insurance for directors, which to me is so pivotal at the moment, because so much legislation is flying about. People have got to do so many things, and it's so easy just to miss one. Like the one I just said about the electrical certificates. It wasn't on the front page of the newspaper. It just slipped in. So if it's
I seen it, but that's because I do a bit of property development network and I got a property maintenance business, so I seen it. But yeah, for the mass market, like most of these things, unless you spend lots of money, you're not going to penetrate everybody. So you only get a percentage, like, you know.
Yeah. So the director's side of it is, if there was a negligence or failure to do something like that, then you could be pursued by a trade body, a company, somebody personally. And I say, and it works out usually to about £2 a day to insure it. And I say to clients all the time, say, like, you know, you're sitting at home, you've got this beautiful house around you, you've got a lovely car and all that kind of stuff. Why would you jeopardise that for £2 a day? Just because it's so fast moving, it's so difficult to protect yourself from every risk or everybody going, you've done me wrong there. For something so small, it just seems, and you know, in this arena, because of COVID, we're expecting a wave of claims just to go like that. So the second wave to us is not going to be a second wave of COVID. It's going to be a wave of director claims, because people have been made redundant or will be made redundant. Some people have been made furloughed, and they go, well, you made me furloughed, but not him or her furloughed. You should have kept him 2 meters apart from me. You haven't set your workspace up correctly. You haven't done this and that. And there's just so much more opportunity for others to pursue you. So it's a case of we're being told that the market's hardening, which means premiums are going up. And in America at the moment, they're excluding COVID-related claims, and it will follow suit over here. So if you can get the cover before that comes in, then you do it.
Yeah, good. Okay, that's brilliant. It's been great having you on the podcast. Just let people know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, so what I'll do is, I'm on LinkedIn, so it's Daniel O'Brien on LinkedIn. I'll see if I can give it my... So on LinkedIn, I've got my email address is on there, but I'll see if I can just, if you can see that. Those are my contact details. Should anyone
and it's Daniel O'Brien with an E instead of an A, isn't it?
Yeah, so my email address is it's Dan, so it's dan.o'brien, which is OBRIEN at astonlark.com.
Brilliant. All right then. Well, yeah, thanks very much for coming on the podcast and sharing some of your experiences and some of the information about what you do. It's been great having you on.
It's been really interesting. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, brilliant. All right then. There's nothing else left for me to say now other than have a great day. I know I will. And thanks very much for listening.